Okay, everyone, Mr. Cohen here on a Friday night, and I am going to try to explain to you Chapter 11, and from the Benward book, that is, and a little bit about what the assignments on Noteflight are looking like. So, hopefully by now, you've already read Chapter 11, one would hope, but where it's all about the dominant seventh chord. So, I'm not going to read for you word for word. You're going to do it, but let's get down to the basics. It's a major triad with a minor seventh on top. Okay, so when you look in root position, you go 1, 3, 5, 7 right on up like that. 1, 3, 5, 7, and flat 7, right? It's not key signature 7. So dominant 7 isn't going to match in that regard, is it? But it's always going to be a minor seventh from the root of the chord. It's found almost as frequently as a dominant triad. So it's pretty typical. You're reading along. We're going to get into inversions. Root position, you're just going to call it a 5-7. Simple enough, am I right? And there's that 1, 3, 5, 7 in thirds wrapped up real nicely. We get into inversions, you start to see seconds. Whenever you see a clump of notes together like that, an F to a G, whatever kind of second it is, that's your tip-off, everyone, that it is a seventh chord. Don't try to write it as a major triad, an ordinary major triad. As long as those two notes are not lined up exactly like the thirds, you're in some kind of inversion of a seventh triad. So first inversion, we're going to call it a 6-5. This is the full writing of the bass. The intervals, we're not going to do that, right? So in first inversion, it's called a 6-5. In second inversion, there's your seconds right there. You see that? That's your tip-off. It's a 4-3. In third version, it's a 4-2. Never mind this right here. I have never seen something written as a 5-2. It's a 5-4-2 if it's in third inversion. That means the seventh is in the bass. There's that second again. You have to look for that little clumping. When the notes clump together, it's a seventh chord. It's going to matter a lot to you. You should be able to recognize it at sight when you're done this. You're going to read macro analysis for yourself. You're going to read the history for yourself. The examples. It's all good stuff. Moving along, applications. Okay, resolving the dominant seventh chord. So from the dissonant seventh's emergence, that's one of the big deals about this, is that the seventh is a dissonance, you recall from earlier. The composers routinely resolve downward by step in the succeeding chord. The dominant seventh chord can be resolved in a number of ways, but here's the most common. In the circle progression. We're talking about circle progressions. They won't all be, but we're going to practice that for a long time. The seventh of the 5-7 resolves one scale step, and that automatically becomes the third factor of the tonic triad. See how that works? The seventh resolves down one. It's just going to be the third of the next chord of the tonic. When the seventh is in the bass, a 5-4-2, remember those numbers, it must resolve to the third factor of 1, and the tonic triad will automatically be in first inversion. So when you get a 5-4-2 inversion, automatically take that bass note down one step, and that'll become a first inversion chord. 5-4-2 goes to 1-6. You almost won't be able to help it. Looking at another illustration, which we can't quite see, observe that if you first resolve the seventh down a step, the 3 remaining voices will move smoothly to notes of the one triad. That's kind of good. Let's take a look at that. Come on, roll down. If you first move the seventh, everything else moves nice and easy. If you first move the seventh, everything else moves nice and easy. Notice there aren't any big leaps here. There's a little leap of a third right there in the tenor. That's okay. The bass, of course, can move a lot more. It doesn't always, depends on where, like there's the seventh in the bass. It's a 5-4-2 chord. We're only going to move it down 1. Okay, that just talked more about that. We're not too worried about it, are we? Why is it not changing over? There we go. There's some nice examples for you to see. All right. In this next one, the seventh of the chord and the leading tone are both resolved. In such cases, omit the fifth. Omit the fifth. Sometimes, you guys, triple the root. That's pretty rare. It's pretty rare, but when you see it, you have a leading tone, must go up, am I right? Leading tone goes up because the leading tone always goes back to the root. And there's your seventh, which is resolving down to the third. So you're going to have a C and a C and a C and a third. No fifth. Only in this case. Tripled root and no fifth. Pretty rare. Don't ever leave out the third. Non-circle progression. Sometimes 5/7 is diverted temporarily from its normal resolution. So it's 5/7 to 6, 5/7 to 3. By the way, threes are not that common in music theory. I think I've been told you'll never see them on the AP exam. But people are using threes a lot. Be careful of those threes. They don't show up much. In these cases, root movement will usually progress by second or third. So, yeah, that one didn't really show it. There's your third. A lot of seconds. There's a lot of seconds in that. More examples. There's a 5/7 to 6. The seventh resolves there. These are things you should follow along. Play the piano on. Find yourself a keyboard. Play along. I use my app on my iPad. It's good. Stylistic practice. So besides what we already had in Chapter 9, those are still in place. Resolve the seventh of the 5/7 chord down one scale degree in the same voice. Well, that's what resolution means, in the same voice. In the few instances where the resolution tone is not present, keep the seventh as a common tone, or move it by the smallest melodic interval possible. All four factors of the 5/7 chord are usually present. You know what that means? You're not doubling. Okay? Almost always not doubling in a 7 chord. But for smoothness of voice leading, the fifth may be omitted and the root doubled. So always the root, the third, the seventh. Usually the fifth. This is rare, 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 okay? Then we're on to the assignments. So we go into a piece that I made. So what I did was I was in the book. Actually, I'll show you. Assignment 11.4, and you have 11.4 and 5 together. Well, they use these right here. I used a little bit of this and a little bit of this because VHS used all of these up here. I checked them out. So I did a little bit of some other ones on this tutorial. I've already written in the answers, but I'm going to talk you through it. One thing you want to do is listen. Since whenever it's in Noteflight, just start listening. Do you hear the 5 to 1 in there? It's a part of it, 5 to 1. All right, so I had to go looking. I did all the work, right? D flat major. They told us at the start of this that it's going to be a 5/7 chord. So I figured it out, 5/4/2. You can see my clump right there? That means the seventh is in the bass. That makes it a third inversion chord. And then by listening, I knew it was going to a 1, figured it out, D flat major. So what do you got to do? You take that seventh, you go down a step, and everything, there's a common tone. Everything else moves really quickly and easily. You come over here. Sounds different, but it's just minor. So it's still 5/7 to 1. Your ears have to be able to help you with this. So we know it's a 5/7. It goes to a 1. You can hear that it's minor. I determined that it's B minor. So 7 is there, goes to there. Everything else moves pretty simply. You following with me on this? I need you to follow with me on this. Do that one again. It's the same thing. It's minor. So in a 5/4/3, the seventh is that to there. I'm sorry, that's just the way Noteflight works. What am I even talking about? Where's my clump? Right? A to D to C. You can't even see the clump on this one because it's D to C. C is the 7th. That would be a clump if your D was up an octave. So C is the 7th, comes down to B flat. Everything else moves very closely. Are you making sense of that? Look for your clump, or hear it. Figure out what your resolution is. In my examples that I chose, I didn't do everything, they're all to 1, but it doesn't have to go to 1. 6 is fairly common, right? 5 to 6. It's not the only way it can go. So spell it out. If you need to write it out, go ahead and write it out. Do whatever you need to do to figure these things out. Remember, you're not going to have silly chords like 5, 7 to 7 because that's pretty much dominant to dominant. You're not going to go 5, 7 to 2. It's a dominant to a predominant. So try to make sense of everything that you're doing. Okay, this is examples from 11.5. Sounds like this. By the way, I changed the rhythms on all these, right? Let's hear them longer. 5, 7 to 1. Do you hear it? You didn't have to label that, though. They already wrote it out for you. What are the mistakes? Well, on this one, there's your 7th, by the way. That's a 3rd inversion chord. Since you're right there on an F sharp, you should be going to E, but they dropped it too far. They went to the root of the chord, of root of 1. When the 7th is in the bass, it must resolve to the 3rd of 1, which is just a step. So they did that wrong. Now could there be other things wrong in there? There could be. I didn't even go looking for them. You got to watch out for parallels. You got other part writing errors. Parallels are kind of common, right? You guys have seen it, heard it. Here's what this one sounds like. One more time. Okay, basic part writing error, big leap in the tenor. From an A to a D. Look at that. That's awful. That's one thing that I found, right? Might not be the only thing, but that's a bad one. So actually, you're probably not likely to get parallel octaves when there's a 5/7 because you have 4 different parts. So that's fortunate. But you have to watch out for parallel fifths. You have to watch out for large leaps. You have to watch out for range issues. There's part writing errors. So that's the gist of it. If you have questions, and you might, you can hit each other up on the discussion boards. You can hit me up on the private topic. Please ask questions if you don't know. I've already been asked questions this week, so that's good. That's my overview. I hope it's helpful for you. Please watch this as often as you need. And I will sign off. I hope you have a great weekend. Be sure to do some of this every day. And may your favorite football team win this week. Patriots and the Packers for me. This is a good week. Have a nice weekend.